I need you to see this reaction Brandon Sanderson had to someone's rating on the Rings of Power. Now, this comes from Brandon Sanderson's podcast, Intentionally Blank, with his co host, Dan Wells, who I'm not familiar with. He is an author, but Brandon Sanderson, if you're not familiar with him, he is perhaps right now the foremost living fantasy author. In any case, he finished Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time, the last 3 books in that series. He made his mark probably mostly with the Mistborn series of novels. And more recently, he has actually had a Kickstarter that made $41.7 million for four novels. You get 4 novels, and he made almost $42 million. So if you don't know Brandon Sanderson, it's perhaps time that you did. So let's see Brandon Sanderson's reaction to the Rings of Power. Now, this is in his episode 78 of Intentionally Blank, his podcast with Dan Wells. And this is Dan Wells talking about what he's going to rate the Rings of Power. Now, just take a look right there at Brandon Sanderson's face when you hear the rating.
Ultimately, for me, Rings of Power is still a 7 or even an 8 out of 10 because I loved it.
I think all of us who watched the show with some distinct knowledge of Tolkien and love of the world that he created would have Brandon Sanderson's reaction of an 8 out of 10? An 8 out of 10? Yeah, Brandon Sanderson's reaction. Priceless, beautiful. Let's take a look at it in slow motion. I mean, that's just classic. That's a true author's reaction to an 8 out of 10 when considering the writing in the Rings of Power, not to mention the acting, the scenery, the plot, and everything else. My name is Jonathan. Thanks for listening to Torque Daily, where you get a sometimes daily dose of Tolkien and maybe a few other things. Give us a like, a subscribe, and if you're interested in some more longer form Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, Silmarillion content, check out our podcast at windowonthewest.com.